Welcome everyone, thanks for coming today. I thought I would begin our talk today by telling you a little bit about my story and how YogaWorks came to be, and along the way kind of share with you some of the business and school ideas that I had along the way. So I was 23 when I had an amazing opportunity put in my lap by a man named Alan Finger. Some of you may know him. He's a very well-distinguished yoga teacher in New York. And he offered me, a 23-year-old, to be his partner in a yoga school. And at that time, I'd been practicing for about 4 years. I had been teaching for 2. And I had ran another yoga school on the other end of town. So I had some ideas of what I thought the next kind of yoga school would be like. And at the time when we opened up the school, we went into a neighborhood that was a little bit expensive. The neighborhood was in Santa Monica, which is a great community. And at the time, we were really the only school in the area. So there was really no competition. But at that time, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no email. We did everything by hand. And at the time also, the yoga schools were people were afraid of them. They still thought that yoga might be religious. It wasn't a household name yet. Yoga was still this thing that people weren't sure of. And here we were, we opened up a yoga school that was called YogaWorks, and we opened in a very chic-y little neighborhood. And there was 2 major motivations for opening the yoga school, and I think it's very important to look at motivation. What motivates you? Why do you want to create something like this? And I had 2 major motivations. The first one was that I was crazy about yoga. Yoga, I was 19 when I started yoga, and it had a major impact on my life. I loved it. And I was a student. I went to every single workshop I could get my hands on. And I studied with some of the best teachers that came to LA. But I wanted to have more of them. And I thought to myself, well, what a great thing to do to open up a school and bring the best yoga teachers under one roof. And at the same time, also have a schedule that reflected the best teachers anywhere in the world. So that was one motivation. And the second motivation was that I felt that if more people did yoga, if we could have more people understanding the art of yoga, getting in touch with their body, we had a slim chance of making a difference in the world. And these are the things I would tell my staff on a regular basis. So when I would train the desk staff at how to answer the phone, I would try and explain to them that moment, that first contact that they have with a student on the phone is an opportunity to maybe make a difference in somebody's life. So YogaWorks, I had the privilege of running it for 16 years, and we grew from 1 room to 3 rooms. We had over 126 classes per week. We saw between 600 to 750 students per day. And that did not include workshops, special events, walk-ins to the store, lectures, none of that, just pure student visits. So needless to say, the place was very busy. It opened at 6 o'clock in the morning and it closed at 10:30 at night, 6 days a week. We also had workshops every weekend. Like I said, we had some of the best teachers from the world, from all over the world come, so we had some of those. We hosted some of our own teachers teaching workshops. Some of our teachers became some of the well-known teachers today. Sean Korn, Shiva Ray, Rod Stryker, the list goes on. Vinnie Marino's here. We have a lot of the teachers were homegrown, and they were able to then start doing workshops. So we had intros. The place was busy. It was very active. But what drove this, what really drove wanting to have this school, was to create the best quality yoga classes. And I think that is maybe the most important thing to remember when you are considering or looking at having a yoga school, that each and every one of your classes, all the teachers on your schedule, have a high quality that they put out each and every day. The the exciting thing about this was that, and I didn't know this would happen, but what happened was we created a community. So it went from being a studio to becoming a school with a great reputation to then being a community. People moved into the area, bought houses in the neighborhood. People had kids, met each other, had kids. Some of those kids came in little cribs and sat in the Ashtanga room until that they were able to no longer do that. We had one teacher that brought her daughter to classes, and her daughter went to Brown University, finished university, decided to do the teacher's training program at Yoga Works, and is still one of the best teachers there. So the place became a community. The schedule had classes for everybody. It wasn't a one-track kind of a place. It had kids, it had seniors, it had easy classes, tons of beginning classes, and more fitness-oriented classes. So we had the spectrum of them. And so the heart of a yoga school, the heart of having a good yoga school is its schedule, the menu. What are you offering? And that schedule is a direct reflection of the leader, of the person who's in charge. Your mission statement. What do you want to express? What does it mean to you? So it's very important to put time and effort into the schedule, how it's made up, so that people have the choices that work for them in their lives, so that yoga is easy for them to come and do. But even more importantly, what drives a yoga school is the students, the student body. And so the students are they're like children. You know, you're to nurture them, you care for them. And when I say the word student, I don't mean a dollar figure. You know, you can count heads, and then those heads mean dollars, but I don't mean that at all. I mean that a student is a spirit. It's a human being with a potential of waking up. And they showed up in your lobby, in your school, about to take possibly one of your classes. And so you have this responsibility. So the Yoga Work schedule, we put an enormous amount of time into it to create a very exciting schedule. And there was always an element of excitement to it. So it wasn't always boring. There was a new teacher, there was a new class, there was something new. And that created energy. Your yoga schools need to have energy. They need to walk in, and it needs to be alive, vibrant. What's happening here this weekend? 7 years ago, 18 years into this, my partner and I, Chuck Miller and I, decided to sell Yoga Works. And we did so, and it may have been one of its first, maybe one of its only kind of sales at the time. And I want to be clear and say, as I'm talking, I'm enthusiastic about the school because it really was a privilege to run this place. It's not an easy business. It's really not easy to run yoga schools. It's a very heavy people-oriented business. You have the students and their needs, and you have a teaching staff, and you have a regular staff that has to help you organize and run this thing. And people don't come out in, they're not cookie cutters. You can't just have a design and spit out 1 million of them. They're more complicated. So some of the problems that we had back then, I believe, are the problems that still exist today in all yoga schools. And that is how to retain teachers, how to keep a good quality in those classrooms. And if you can think this through very carefully and very wisely, you are a good way in. So teachers need to be inspired. They need ways of studying. So you need to be able to create an atmosphere where they can learn, where they can grow themselves, so that they're going to want to stay at your school. Of course, you need to pay well. You need to have a good way of paying teachers. And at Yoga Works, we created a health insurance policy. We created a group policy where our teachers, our full-time teachers, were able to receive health benefits. And that was a very wise way of retaining teachers. Today, I would go further and tell you that I would highly look at ways of profit sharing with your teachers, because without that teaching team, without those great teachers, you don't have those quality classes. And then a teacher's training program. Unfortunately today, a lot of yoga trainings they're kind of cash cows. They're about getting lots of people in. It's a big amount of money paid up front. A lot of schools keep themselves afloat with a yoga training. But for me, the teacher's training at YogaWorks in those days was not about that. It was about training the next crop, about bringing the best, the cream of the crop, and we had an evaluation program. People had to test for this. They couldn't just sign up for a teacher's training. Bringing the best quality of the student body that was interested in learning yoga, having the best teachers, and I mean the best teachers with lots of experience, train the next crop. So you have the next set of substitute teachers, the next group of people that are going to be teaching your classes. If your teachers are turned on to yoga, you know, there's something about taking a workshop with a great teacher. You're turned on. You walk into the class, something got fired up in you. It's not the same old thing you do all the time. If your teachers are fired up, if the school feels good, if the classes are working well, then you have the best form of advertising, which is word of mouth. Over the years at YogaWorks, we did an enormous amount of checking in with students. How'd you hear of us? Why'd you come here? And the most important thing that people said over and over and over again is, my cousin sent me, my friend brought me here. The word of mouth is your best form of advertising, and it's free. Not to say that you don't want a great website, not to say that you don't want to be on Facebook and Twitter and all those amazing things that are out there for you today, which we had none of. But there's nothing like that word of mouth. And it starts in those classrooms with the teachers and with your dedication to keep the quality of the yoga alive. And quality to me is a way of living a spiritual life. You know, that's what we're seeking when we're looking for yoga, when we're looking for a more spiritual way of being in the world, is quality of life. That quality of excellence. Yoga demands that of you, to go a little further, to reach a little deeper, to be a better human being, to make a bigger effort, to lend a hand more often. So that's a spiritual path. Along the way, you know, after selling YogaWorks, this is 7 years later, I've been traveling, teaching yoga workshops in many places, seen lots of yoga schools, had some time to reflect. And there's some things I would do very differently. And maybe some of those things are interesting to talk about. I would absolutely and positively open up my books to all my teachers and let them know how I'm doing financially. People think yoga schools do a lot better than they do, and they don't. They're not easy. There's so many expenses behind the scenes. Let your teachers know that. Find a way to make your teachers part of the growth. They are helping you grow. My teachers helped me grow YogaWorks. I did not do it alone. I had an unbelievable staff of teachers, and they went in every day and taught great classes. A profit-sharing program, some sort of a way to feel like I have something at the end of this. That would be something I would definitely change. On a personal level, I think it's important as yoga owners of schools not to take things personally. You know, teachers leave, they open yoga schools, sometimes in places you're not happy about. They become your competition. It can be painful. But I think it's important to know that we don't own anybody. You can't keep people. And that letting the people that taught for you prosper is important. If they can prosper with you, if you can help them do that, great. But if they choose to do it on their own, Send them out into the world with lots of generosity. Put up flyers for events in other yoga schools. Embrace the total community. There's tons to go around. You don't need to be afraid. If those qualities in your yoga classes are good, people will return to you. So this conference is about a younger generation. That's what they told us in our teachers meeting yesterday. It's a younger generation. And you guys have this opportunity to learn from the past, to see what some of the old schools did, some of the old formats, and ingest in it some new ideas, some freshness. Keep some of that goodness, some of those ideas of good quality yoga classes, senior teachers coming in and teaching good quality classes, and yet move into another way of doing things in the world where you're sharing with the people that are helping you grow your yoga school. So one of the biggest compliments that maybe we got when we sold YogaWorks is the new owners of YogaWorks thought about changing the name. They weren't sure they wanted to keep the name. They toyed with it for quite a while. And then there was a meeting one day, and one of the guys came in, and they said, we're not changing the name. And they said, well, why? And they said, because every single teacher I've spoken to so far is so proud to be on the YogaWorks schedule. That is worth the whole thing. We're not changing the name. We're YogaWorks. So that was a compliment, because that was a schedule that we created, worked really hard, and I think even today people will tell you that YogaWorks in those days was a community, was a place that they felt at home, and lots of good memories happened there. Thank you, everyone.
We have time for a couple questions.
I don't have yoga school, but I have yoga studio.
Okay.
And we're fairly new, and what I'm struggling with right now is I want to create, instead of just paying instructors, I was trying to create some sort of a co-op situation. Do you have any advice or comments on that, on how I could do that with the teachers, with pay, and how, so they're invested and we're invested together as a team?
Right. Co-ops can work really well. They can be very, very stress-free on the owner. I think a good way to do that is to have them pay a rental fee, and maybe have that rental fee be based a little bit on the kind of time slots they get. So you give them a break if the time slot is a little less desirable, charge them a little bit more if the time slot is better. And maybe also have a situation where there is some sort of a collectiveness, because I think one of the problems with a co-op is everybody's sort of this independent contractor, and you don't get that feeling of the community. So maybe there's a way to create a schedule together where everybody puts some, gave a little bit of money to create this schedule where it looked like more of a center, but with more of an independent feeling to the teachers, where they come in, they pay you rent, they take in the money for their classes, and you have budgeted how much you need to run the school, so that's all covered with the rent of the teachers, and then your classes are how you make a living. So it can be a very, very, very stress-free way of running a yoga school. The downside to it is the lack of community, but maybe you can change that around by having a meeting, by having the teachers support each other vibrationally, talk well about each other, and collectively maybe do something so it does look like there is some sort of a center. Yes?
I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts about a school or a studio that just offers like one specialized type of style?
That's a good question. I really believed in diversity when I opened up YogaWorks. But within that diversity, there was a message. So it wasn't like everything could come in the door, because that's too much. There's no message there. That won't work, I don't think. So we did have a kind of a one focus. But we diversified. So we had Ashtanga classes, we had Iyengar classes, so it was a Krishnamacharya-based yoga school. We had a little bit of Vini Yoga. And then we created our own style, which was more available to the public. So Ashtanga and Iyengar can be a little bit more extreme. We created classes that were more a combination that was suitable for the public. I think there's something great about a one-focused yoga school, because you're not confusing the students. One of the problems with a school like we had is every once in a while there was a difference of opinion. I mean, let's face it, the Iyengar teachers and the Ashtanga teachers had some different points of view. We did have a code of ethics in the school, and it's so important to do that, that nobody spoke badly about anyone. You know, we had a way of saying to students, this isn't what I do, but try that, you know, so that it wasn't, so that people didn't feel like, so teachers didn't feel put down by others. When you have a one-focused yoga school, you don't have that problem. But it depends on the kind of school you're offering. Some of these one-focused schools don't appeal to as many people. So maybe within that, you can look at how can I appeal to more people. So for example, if it was an Ashtanga school, well, how can I create some very beginning Ashtanga classes? So within that one focus, which can be very, very powerful, less confusion to the students, creates some diversity so that there is that ability to bring in more people to classes. Is that helpful?
What would you say the most important thing, if you were going to pass on one thing to a yoga studio owner, what would it be?
Focus on the quality of your yoga classes, 100%. Make sure your yoga classes are well taught by well-informed yoga teachers. Keep their training up. Quality of those yoga classes, that's the most important thing you can think of. That was what I believed and what I still believe today.
Maybe say a few words about when you're first starting, like maybe the first 3 months. Like, what do you need to get something going? Like, if you're trying to start a yoga studio.
That's a great question. Well, you need to study your area. You really need to study your area. You need to know, you know, what else is in the neighborhood. You need to look at the kinds of people that live in the neighborhood. You need to search for a group of teachers that you can feel good about putting on a schedule, creating a team effort amongst them. You want to put in a very, very good website, a computer system that works. You want to find a staff that can do the tasks of running a yoga school well. It's also really important as an owner to kind of know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. I think it's very important to know your weaknesses, and it's very important to surround yourself with people that will not be shy to tell you this is not a good idea. You are not doing the right thing. Because when you get too big, when your ego gets too full, and particularly if you're the head teacher, it's very difficult for people to come up to you and say to you, this is not a good idea. You need to kind of cut that out and be very, very open to the feedback of what can I do differently. So in those 3 months, you need to study the area, you need to get your system organized, get the word out that you're opening a school, make friends with other schools in the area, build a community, start to build a word of mouth, and build a team of people. Know what you can do well and what you need to delegate to other people to do for you. As an owner, it's very, very important that you have that buffer, you know, that teachers can go vent to somebody, that students can go vent to somebody, and that filter can then come to you, and you can kind of listen to it, step back from it with a more open mind and see if maybe it is you that needs to take a slightly different approach. Never take any of it personally. At the end of the day, you are serving. You are a servant of your students your teachers, and the community. It's really your job.
My question is around scheduling and trying to find that magic elixir for times to offer classes, because people will come in and say, you know, I would take your class if it was at this time, and then you have classes at that time, and then they're not so full, and you change class times, and what, you know, there's the early morning class, the mid-morning class, the noon class, the late afternoon and the evening class. What have you found that has worked the best?
Such a great, I spent 16 years with this.
Please let me know.
Well, first of all, you got to know one thing. You will never please everybody. And the people that whine the most are not the ones you want to listen to. And I mean it. They are not the ones you want to listen to. And I'm going to tell you an example of this. Over 16 years of running a yoga school, sometimes you get beaten up a bit. You know, people often tell you what you didn't do well. When we sold Yoga Works, and they had a little going away party for us, I couldn't believe how many people came. Where were you all these years? The thank yous, the kisses, people that weren't even coming to my classes, going to other people's classes. Those people that love what you do, they're not the ones that are whining. So be careful of listening to them. It is really important to look at your schedule. It's your business, so it does have a dollar amount to it, but it also has a responsibility to the student base. If students are not going to a class, there's something wrong, okay? So it's your responsibility to turn it around. Maybe it's a teacher that you need to put some love and tender care into. Maybe it's a teacher that needs more training. Maybe it's a teacher that needs more help with sequencing. Maybe it's a teacher that needs to leave that classroom. Maybe it's a teacher that thinks they are good at teaching level 2, 3 classes, but they really need to be teaching level 1 classes. So it's your job to get in there. It's like making dough. Get in there with your hands and make it work. It's really a good idea to have lineups. Not to have one class here, one class, to make programs. People like programs. I go Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:30. I go Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9. And this is my teacher. Monday, programs. Make programs. Have level 1 classes, beginning level 1 classes at all your good time slots. You know, have your flow classes. Have one flow class and one beginning class at all your best time slots. And time slots are interesting because I used to tell my teachers that there's no such thing as a bad time slot. Okay, now it's true that some time slots are more desirable, but I'll give you an example. At Yoga Works, between 12 to 4, we had tons of people in. We had kids, we had seniors, we had Easy Does It. It was the funnest time to be at Yoga Works because the children were running around, we had pregnant ladies, we had prenatal, we had the seniors coming in. It was a very fun, alive time, 12 to 4. Who would have thought of it? So you have to use creativity. You have to look at your area. You have to look at your students. Put evaluation sheets in your lobby. Read every single one of them. Don't overlook them. People take the time to write something. It's good. Listen to it. And see how many of them you get. If you start to see a build-up, listen to it. Don't be afraid to mix things around. It creates energy.
I'm just curious, now is Yoga Works owned by one owner or what is the current state of Yoga Works?
Yoga Works is owned by 2 entities. It is owned by a capital venture group in Boston. That's the major stockholder. And it's also owned by a man named Marc. I forget his last name. I'm sorry, Marc. He used to own 24 Hour Fitness. So those 2 are the largest shareholders of Yoga Works. They run the place basically, as far as I know, slightly from behind the scenes. They have a very good team up front. It's run as a corporation.
And then the last thing is, how do you feel about franchise opportunities?
Buying into a franchise?
Right. Right, where it's kind of like a set style or a set program where they've kind of figured out some of the kinks and they're starting to open up. Similar, I mean, almost what Bikram's done.
You know, this is a personal question, and personally for me, I could never do it. I couldn't do it. I like to do things differently. I think it's super, super important to do something different, to have a different logo, to have a different class, to have something different that identifies your message. So it wouldn't really attract me personally, but I can see that for some people it could be a way to feel more confident in doing this, because there is some systems involved. I don't know if that helps you. I think it's important also to think ahead, like, will you like this in 10 or 15 years? Would you want to be part of this 10 or 15 years down the road? Because what you want to be now, be it now. You know, don't do something that 5, 10, 15 years later you'll go, oh, but I want to do it my way, and then have to change. Thank you.